The sound of the phone hitting the wall echoed in the sudden silence, sharper than any scream. Shards of glass skittered across the hardwood floor like panicked insects. His face, moments before contorted in a mask of rage, was now a ghastly white, eyes wide and unseeing, fixed not on me, but on the scattered pieces of the screen that had shown him his undoing. My breath hitched, not in fear, but in a cold, deep satisfaction that settled heavy and final in my chest. This wasn't the breakdown I had imagined, the pathetic tears, the mumbled apologies. This was pure, animalistic fury, the cornered rat realizing the trap had sprung and there was no escape. His hands were trembling, clenched into fists, his body shaking with the force of his unreleased violence. But he couldn't touch me. He knew, in that instant, that touching me would only make it worse. He just stood there, panting, the silence in the room roaring louder than his earlier shouts, punctuated only by the faint, distant sound of sirens, maybe for him, maybe just the city breathing. My heart hammered a slow, steady beat against my ribs. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just watched him, this man I had loved, disintegrate before my eyes, shattered by the truth I had so carefully laid bare. The air was thick with the metallic tang of ozone and the sour smell of his fear. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, it helps me more than you know. Before all this, life felt like a perfectly constructed room. Not a grand palace, but warm, comfortable, filled with the things we had built together. There was a rhythm to our days, a quiet understanding that flowed between us like a slow, deep river. We had inside jokes that could send us into fits of laughter with just a look. We talked about everything, the mundane details of work, the ridiculousness of politics, the dreams we still held on to, the quiet comfort of knowing the other person was there, a constant presence in a chaotic world. He was my anchor, my safe harbor. Or so I believed. Our apartment was a reflection of us, comfortable, slightly worn, filled with books and art collected over years, souvenirs from trips we'd taken, testaments to a shared history. Nights were for cooking together, watching old movies curled up on the couch, talking late into the quiet hours. There was a predictability to it, a gentle certainty that felt like peace. We weren't perfect, no one is, but the foundation felt solid, built on mutual respect, shared values, and that deep, quiet love that grows over time, settling into the bones of a life. We talked about the future easily, retirement plans, where we wanted to travel next, maybe renovating the kitchen, growing old together on the front porch swing. It felt safe, like I could finally exhale. Then Sarah came into the picture. Not with a bang, but a whisper. A new colleague at his office. He mentioned her casually at first. There's a new person on the team, Sarah, just a name. People join teams all the time. Nothing to see here. Then it was, Sarah's having trouble with the new software. I stayed late to help her. Okay, helpful colleague. That's good. Then we grabbed lunch, just a few of us from the team, still fine. Normal work stuff. But the frequency increased. Her name weaving its way into more and more conversations. He'd laugh about something she said. He'd recount an anecdote about her quirks. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly, like a vine beginning to creep up a wall. Harmless at first, even a little interesting to hear about the dynamics of his workplace. The first prickle of unease wasn't about her. It was about him. A shift in his energy when he mentioned her name. A slight defensiveness if I asked a follow-up question. A phone notification would ping late at night, and he'd snatch it up a little too quickly, turning away slightly. Nothing concrete, nothing I could point to. Just a feeling. A cold drop in my stomach that I tried to ignore. I told myself I was being silly, insecure. She was just a colleague. He said so. Over and over. She's just a friend. I tried talking to him about it, gently at first. You seem to be spending a lot of time talking about Sarah lately, he brushed it off. She's new. I'm helping her settle in. Plus, we just click. Easy to talk to, his tone was light, dismissive of my concern. It made me feel small, petty, like the jealous wife cliché. I hated that feeling. I pushed the unease down, buried it under layers of trust and logic. He wouldn't do that. Not him. Not us. But the vine kept growing.
The phone was always face down now.
He took it with him everywhere. To the bathroom, to get the mail, even if he was just stepping out onto the balcony. A new password appeared on his laptop, one I didn't know. Late nights at work became more frequent, but the stories about why he was late felt thin, rehearsed. He'd come home smelling faintly of a perfume I didn't wear. A new cologne, he said. One he bought on a whim. The silence between us grew, heavy and suffocating. We were sharing the same space, but it felt like there was a glass wall between us. The easy conversation dwindled. The inside jokes felt hollow. The future plans we used to discuss so freely now felt like lines from a script we'd forgotten the ending to. My questions became more direct, fueled by a growing desperation to either confirm or deny the sinking suspicion. "Are you having an affair?" He reacted with outrage. Hurt. How could I even think that? After all these years? Didn't I trust him? It was always turned back on me. My insecurity, my lack of trust, my overactive imagination. He was a master at making me feel like the problem. Like I was the one damaging our relationship with my baseless accusations. I'd apologize, feeling guilty and confused, hating myself for suspecting the man I loved. He'd hold me, and for a moment, I'd feel the old comfort, believe his words. And then the phone would ping, and the cycle would begin again. The emotional toll was immense. Sleep became elusive, haunted by fragmented thoughts and imagined scenarios. Food tasted like ash. My body felt constantly tense, coiled tight like a spring ready to snap. Every interaction was filtered through the lens of suspicion. A casual comment he made, a look that lingered too long on his phone, the way he cleared his throat, it all became evidence, circumstantial and maddening, because I couldn't prove anything. I was living in a state of perpetual anxiety, a prisoner in my own home, trapped by a lie I couldn't expose. I started losing weight. Friends commented that I looked tired, drawn. I'd force a smile, say I was just stressed with work. But the real stress was living with the ghost of the man I thought I married, replaced by this stranger who lied to my face every day. One rainy Saturday, huddled under a blanket, feeling utterly alone while he was at a work seminar he'd conveniently forgotten to mention until the day before, something shifted. A cold, clear thought cut through the emotional fog. This wasn't just about my feelings anymore. This was about truth. About agency. I was tired of being tossed about on the waves of his deception. I needed proof, not just for myself, but to build a lifeboat, to find solid ground. The fear was still there, paralyzing in its intensity. The fear of what I would find, the definitive end of everything I knew. But beneath the fear, a hard, bright spark of determination ignited. I wouldn't be the passive recipient of his lies any longer. I would find the truth. I would face it, and I would decide what happened next. The search for proof was agonizing. It felt like dismantling my own life, brick by painful brick. I wasn't tech-savvy, but necessity is a harsh teacher. I started with the basics. Checking shared accounts, looking for unusual spending. Nothing obvious. Then I remembered a shared cloud service we used for photos. Was it possible? My hands trembled as I navigated through folders. Vacation pictures, family events, mundane snapshots of daily life. And then I saw it. A recently created folder, named something innocuous, like Project X. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat. I clicked it open. It wasn't work files. It was screenshots. Thousands of them. Scrolling through them was like walking through a minefield, each image an explosion in my chest. Texts. So many texts. Between him and Sarah. Pet names. Declarations of love. Plans to meet. Pictures exchanged. Pictures I never wanted to see. Pictures that confirmed everything and more. Dates, times, locations. A parallel life he was living, vibrant and real, while mine felt like it was fading to gray.
They talked about me. dismissively,
calling me clueless, naive, a hurdle to be managed. They laughed about the lies he told me. They planned a trip together, booked under false names. The pain was a physical thing, a searing burn that stole my breath. But amidst the agony, a new feeling began to bloom, cold and hard. Not just hurt, anger,
pure un'adulterante rage.
and something else, a chilling calm. Because as I scrolled, I noticed something else. Buried among the lovey-dovey texts and secret plans, there were other messages. Ones that didn't fit the romantic narrative. Conversations about his work, about clients, about a major deal he was working on. And then, specific messages about the friend and her involvement. Jargon I didn't understand at first. References to accounts, transfers, signatures. Details about that work seminar he'd gone to. It wasn't a seminar. It was a meeting with someone related to this deal. And Sarah wasn't just a colleague or a lover. She was involved in something financial. Something complex and clearly not above board. They were discussing diverting funds, creating shell companies, bypassing regulations. Using his position at his company to orchestrate something illegal with her help. The affair was real, a devastating betrayal of my heart.
But this
was a betrayal of a different magnitude. A betrayal that had legal and financial consequences, not just emotional ones. The screenshots weren't just proof of infidelity. They were evidence of fraud. The agony of the affair suddenly took a backseat to a sharp, strategic clarity. The tears dried. The trembling stopped. A cold resolve settled over me. They weren't just laughing at me for being cheated on. They were using me, or planning to discard me, while lining their pockets with illicit gains. And the screenshots, the same screenshots that shattered my world, held the key to dismantling theirs. This wasn't just about getting a divorce anymore. This was about justice. And survival. My survival. I spent days meticulously copying, organizing, and backing up every single screenshot, every document I could find linked to their financial scheme. It was tedious, heartbreaking work. Reading their intimate messages side by side with their criminal planning was surreal, like two different monsters coexisting in the same twisted narrative. The depth of his deceit, the way he compartmentalized his life, lying with such ease to the person he shared a home with, it was staggering. I felt nothing but a cold disgust now. The love I had felt for him was being systematically burned away, replaced by a hard, unyielding anger. I consulted a lawyer, quietly, discreetly. Not just a divorce lawyer, but one specializing in financial fraud and corporate malfeasance. I showed them the evidence. Their reaction was grave. This wasn't small potatoes. This was serious. My lawyer helped me understand the implications, the steps I needed to take immediately to protect myself, and how to use the information I had. We worked swiftly, silently. Freezing certain accounts, filing preliminary reports with relevant authorities, gathering more external evidence based on the clues in the screenshots. While he was still living his double life, oblivious, I was building a fortress of truth and consequences around him. I was no longer the victim. I was the architect of his downfall. I chose the moment carefully, not in a fit of rage, not when he was rushing out the door. A quiet evening. We were in the living room, the room where we'd shared so many hours, built so many dreams. The air felt heavy, expectant. He looked tired, maybe from juggling his two lives. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. My voice was steady, calm, almost detached. "We need to talk," he sighed, a practiced, weary sigh. "About what? Are we doing this again?" He sounded bored, annoyed. The arrogance was breathtaking. I held up my phone. The screen was bright, displaying the first screenshot. A message from Sarah. Something innocuous at first glance, but the timestamp was from a night he said he was working late. "What's that?" He frowned, a flicker of unease in his eyes. I didn't answer. I swiped. The next message. More familiar, affectionate language. Swiped again. Plans for a secret weekend getaway.
Swiped. Swiped. Swiped.
His eyes widened with each swipe. The color drained from his face. The bored annoyance evaporated, replaced by confusion, then panic. He started to stammer. What? Where did you? That's. I kept swiping. Through the pet names, the declarations, the pictures. Page after page of undeniable proof of the affair. I held the phone out to him, letting him see the sheer volume of it. Thousands of messages, stretching back months. He took the phone from my hand, his fingers fumbling. He scrolled frantically, his eyes darting across the screen.
His chest heaved.
He looked trapped.
Caught.
His carefully constructed world was collapsing around him in a cascade of digital evidence. Then he saw those messages. The ones about the financial scheme. The jargon, the dates, the details about the seminar. His head snapped up. His eyes weren't just panicked anymore. They were terrified. This was different. This wasn't just about our marriage. This was about his career. His freedom.
You
saw this. His voice was a hoarse whisper. I nodded, my gaze unwavering. I saw everything. That's when he started screaming, not just raising his voice. A guttural, primal scream of pure terror and rage. He threw the phone against the wall, the sound of glass shattering a punctuation mark on his breakdown. He paced, running his hands through his hair, shouting incoherently. Accusations, denials, curses aimed at me, at Sarah, at the world. He accused me of spying, of invading his privacy. The sheer hypocrisy was astounding, but I felt nothing.
No anger, no hate.
Just a profound, chilling sense of victory. His screaming wasn't just about the affair being exposed. It was about the other thing, the bigger thing. He finally stopped pacing, eyes wild. You don't understand. You don't know what you've done. I met his gaze, calm as a still lake. Oh, I think I do. And I didn't just see the messages about Sarah. I saw the ones about the financial arrangements, about diverting the funds,
About the offshore accounts.
about how you planned to use the seminar cover to finalize the deal. His mouth dropped open. The screaming stopped dead. He stared at me, utter disbelief and horror on his face. He hadn't known I'd gone that deep. He thought I was just looking for proof of the affair. He thought he could perhaps weather that storm, spin a story, minimize it. But the financial fraud, that was the real secret. The one he had carefully hidden, using the affair as a convenient distraction, maybe even planning to leave me once the deal was done, taking his illicit gains. He was blindsided. He had underestimated me completely. He had assumed I was the naive, trusting wife he had been lying to for months. He hadn't realized that while he was building his empire of lies, I was quietly gathering the blueprints to tear it all down. I let the silence hang between us, heavy with the weight of his realization. Then I delivered the final blow, my voice soft, almost sympathetic, but with an edge of steel. Don't worry, I said. You won't have to explain it to me. I've already explained it. To the authorities. And your company's internal ethics committee. The reports were filed yesterday. I used your own words, your own plans, detailed in those screenshots. They have everything. By the time you finish screaming, the investigators will probably be knocking on the door. His face crumpled. The terror was absolute now. This wasn't just about losing me. This was about losing everything. His job, his reputation, his freedom. The affair was the match that lit the fire, but the financial plot was the gasoline. And he had handed me both the match and the gasoline in his own cloud storage. He had buried the evidence of his greater crime among the evidence of his lesser one, never imagining I would look that closely, or understand what I was seeing, or know what to do with it. His screaming moments ago was about the affair. His silence now was the sound of his entire life imploding. He had tried to win bigger by betraying me financially as well as emotionally, and instead, I had won bigger by using his infidelity to expose his fraud. The silence in the room stretched, broken only by his ragged breathing. The sirens outside grew louder, then faded. Maybe they weren't for him after all. But the ones coming for him were real, and they were closer than he knew. I didn't feel triumphant, not truly. There was a cold satisfaction. Yes, a sense of having righted a terrible wrong and protected myself. But it was overlaid with a profound sadness for the death of a marriage, for the person I thought he was, for the future we had lost. I looked at him, this shell of a man standing amidst the shattered glass, and saw only a stranger. The man I loved was gone long before this night. I turned, picking my way carefully through the broken glass. I didn't need to pack. I had already moved essential documents and a few belongings days ago, while he was out. My lawyer had advised me to have an exit strategy ready. The apartment, our home, now felt like a tomb. I walked to the door, my steps steady. I didn't look back. Leaving was harder and simpler than I imagined. Harder because it was the final severing of a life I had built, a future I had believed in. Simpler because the person I was leaving was no longer the man I had married. He was a stranger, a betrayer, standing in the ruins of his own making. The air outside was cool and clean, a stark contrast to the suffocating atmosphere inside. The city lights blurred through the residual moisture on my eyes, not from tears of sadness, but from the sting of finality. The aftermath wasn't a sudden burst of freedom, but a slow, difficult climb out of a deep pit. There were legal proceedings, awkward conversations with friends and family who had no idea the depth of the lies, and the constant ache of rebuilding a life I hadn't planned to live alone. But there was also a quiet strength that grew within me. I had faced the worst, confronted the betrayal, and emerged not just surviving, but fighting back. I had protected myself, exposed the truth, and ensured that his actions had consequences far beyond the pain he inflicted on me personally. The screenshots, once instruments of agony, became tools of my liberation. They represented not just his betrayal, but my resilience, my refusal to be a victim, my capacity for cold, strategic action when pushed to the brink. I learned that intuition is a powerful guide, that ignoring the red flags costs more in the long run than facing them, and that sometimes, the person you think you know best is a stranger wearing a familiar mask. The experience left scars, deep ones, but they are marks of survival, not defeat. The room we built together is gone, shattered like the phone on the floor. But I am building a new one, brick by painstaking brick, on a foundation of truth and my own unwavering strength. This time, the foundation is solid. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version in the comments. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, it helps me more than you know.